Welcome to our online workshop tips for communicating effectively using Blackboard. This is one of our online workshops and discussions in a series of Blackboard tips sessions where we really hope to kind of curate and share some best practices and tips when it comes to teaching with Blackboard. My name is Jason Rohde, and I'm the Assistant Director of the Faculty Development and Instructional Design Center at Northern Illinois University. If you've not met me before, I do conduct a lot of the Blackboard support workshops. I meet with faculty, consultations in regards to teaching online, teaching with Blackboard. And really my goal with the workshop today is to share with you some tips I've collected from my own experience, having taught with Blackboard now for a little over 10 years. And design courses. These are some tips that I've found along the way that I think would be helpful to you. And also, really the goal of participating live in the workshop is that you get the chance to actually share your tips as well. And so as we kind of go through the session, I'm going to have certainly some things to share, but I will be opening it up for anyone else to also kind of share your tips and best practices that you've come across as well as we're going through the session today. So if you're viewing the archive of this, whether it be online or in mobile format, we're glad to have you viewing the archive, and feel free to follow up with me even after viewing the archive if you have further questions or additional tips that you'd like to share. So as far as our agenda, just to kind of show, give you an overview, a roadmap of kind of where we hope to head today, I've really outlined our agenda into, broken down the tips kind of by major communication tool. So when it comes to, we're going to talk about email in Blackboard. We'll talk about announcements in Blackboard and some things you can do, some suggestions in that regard. We'll focus, spend a bit of time on asynchronous discussions, meaning the discussion board in Blackboard. How do you effectively set those up? What are some tips for really maximizing the effectiveness of those discussion communications? I'm going to talk a bit about blogs, wikis, and journals. In Blackboard 9, the version that NIU upgraded to in May of 2011, since that upgrade, we now have integrated blogs, wikis, and journals within Blackboard. So I want to share a little bit about how you get started setting those up and some tips in that regard. Then we'll also just very briefly talk a little bit about synchronous presentations and discussions, meaning real-time collaborations like we're having here today. And I'm happy to answer other questions that may come up as we're going through today. I will say, we've got quite a bit of ground to cover, so we may not get in depth with a lot of the technical how-tos. I'm kind of assuming that most of you probably already know how to set up a lot of these different tools, but really talk a little more about some of the specific tips and have a discussion about some best practices for using these. As far as how you set up these different communication tools, if you have further questions, and I'm not able to answer them today, due to the amount of time we have, certainly follow up with me directly. I'm happy to meet with you one-on-one to answer questions you might have, or we can correspond electronically if need be to get those questions answered. We do also in our, just make a quick plug for our faculty development workshops, or our hands-on Blackboard workshops, where we do also walk through how to set up these different communication tools in Blackboard. So let's kind of see our agenda. We're going to start out with talking about the email tool. That's kind of the first communication tool that we want to spend a bit of time just discussing here today. And if you're relatively new to the new Blackboard version that we have on campus here at NIU, and just to kind of give you a quick primer for those maybe that haven't taken a quick look at the Blackboard, the new Blackboard. When you go into Blackboard now, the control panel has been on the left-hand side has been kind of contextualized in a sense to where the different sections now expand and collapse when you click on the titles. And within this course tools area that you see, if you go down a bit, you'll notice that we have this option to send an email. And so we do from time to time, if you wanted to send an email to the students, you would go to under Course Tools, you'd actually click up here on the Course Tools option, the first bar it is that you see, and then the Send Email option that appears, the Course Tool to send email. And that's then what you see then to the right is this Send Email page, which gives you the options to send email to your students. And you can send email directly from Blackboard to your students. You likely already knew that. You can send it to all users in the course. You can send it just to all of the students. You can do kind of a mass email to all students. You can also, if you had more than one instructor and you wanted, or a TA and you wanted to communicate with your TAs, you can do that. I think probably what's most common is that faculty will send, an email, pick a particular student or even a group. That's another option that you have. You can select a group and you can send email to a group. So here's a few email tips, things that I've come across and would certainly emphasize here today. The first being that I suggest you compose emails in a word processor. Rather than always composing your emails in your email clients or just directly in Blackboard, which you can do. You can just go to send email and compose your email right there. If you're going to be sending emails and the typical emails, maybe a welcome email to the course at the beginning of the course, or maybe a reminder to buy the textbook, those kinds of things that maybe you're going to reuse, I recommend that you have a folder on your computer. And this is something that I do, is I'll have a folder for my course, and then I'll have actually a communications folder within that. And then the things that I draft, whether they're emails or announcements, I like to draft those in Microsoft Word, for example, and then save those files in that folder so I have those communications that I can then reuse. Because oftentimes, not only when you teach that course again, you may want to reuse those communications, but that email may, with a few tweaks, be applicable to other courses that you teach. So just kind of thinking about managing the workload when it comes to teaching online, teaching with Blackboard, email is still one of those communications that we often do with our students, and it's a good idea to keep those emails archived so that you can make use of them and reuse them in the future. I do recommend, even though you can here at NIU, for example, we can email the students from MyNIU. I do recommend emailing them from Blackboard, just so that it gets you accustomed to the fact that you can not only send them a general email, but things such as sending the student an email from the Grade Center, which tip down here, number 4, to email the students regarding assessment deficiencies directly from the Grade Center. You can do that as well, where you don't have to be in that send email area, but in the Grade Center there's actually an area where you can check a student's name if you notice they've missed a couple of quizzes, for example. You can check the box next to their name, and then there's an option at the top to send an email to that student. And that's really a great time saver to be able to do that right in the context of when you noticed and you want to send that quick email to the students. When you send an email from Blackboard, you get a copy of that email. And so one of the things I recommend is that you save a copy of those Blackboard emails within a folder in your email client. So within GroupWise, for example, you might want to have a folder then for each class. And then when those copy of those emails come in, just to keep an archive for yourself, you can save those in that folder. Now, Blackboard does not keep your sent email like GroupWise or another email program would do. It basically just acts as the channel, and when you send it, it does send it from Blackboard. That copy that you receive back at your email address does indeed serve as your email copy of what was sent. So you want to hang on to that in your email client. Again, speaking of email, and I don't have this here on the slide, but one of the things you can do is actually specify what email in Blackboard you receive email at. By default, you're going to receive email from Blackboard at your official NIU GroupWise email address. If you, and students by default, they receive any email as well at their student email address. you can, as a faculty member, actually request from the ITS Help Desk that your email address in Blackboard be changed to a different email. If, for example, you wanted all of your Blackboard email to go to a Gmail account or something to that effect, you can choose to make that change. It's kind of a one-time change. You're not allowed to do it directly in the Blackboard system. That is locked down, but you can contact our ITS Help Desk if you'd like to have that change made, and they can do that for you. The last tip here on this slide is in regards to Blackboard's built-in message tool. Blackboard has this tool. It's called Messages, and it was intended to serve kind of as an internal email, if you will, within the Blackboard course, where you could send a message to a student. It would go directly to them, and then they could access it directly in the course. The problem with this tool in its current state in Blackboard at the moment is that there's no notification that you have a message waiting for you in this messages area. In other products, for example, if you've ever used WebCT, which is a predecessor tool to Blackboard in its current state, Blackboard actually bought WebCT and is in the process of, again, merging the products together. In WebCT, there was this kind of internal messaging tool, but what was great about it is when you logged into the course and you had a new message, there was an icon, a green asterisk, if you will, that kind of indicated, yes, there's a message here, and a visual prompt to go in and check and see what that message is. There aren't those kind of visual cues in the built-in messages tool in Blackboard, so I recommend that you do stick with the email and sending email from Blackboard, but not use that messages tool that is built in. So I'm going to pause and see, those are kind of my tips when it comes to emailing from Blackboard, and I just want to pause and see if anyone has any other tips when it comes to communicating with students through email. So I'll just pause for just a few seconds here and see if anyone has anything. You can type it in the text chat or raise your hand, and I will pause and turn the mic over to you. Kind of for each of these groupings of tools, I'll share kind of my tips, and then give everyone a chance to kind of share their any tips that they might have. How many of you, just curious, how many of you currently do send email to your students from Blackboard? If you do, you can use the little check mark icon and just check yes if you do, or the no, the red X if you don't. Just curious to see how many of you are using the email tool already within Blackboard. Very good. Looks like most of you probably already do. I find that I don't use I use the email probably most importantly to send these quick little reminders about missing Grade Center items and things. Generally, if I'm going to do a mass kind of info announcement email to the whole class, what I've been doing, rather than sending those as emails, is I've been using the announcement tool in Blackboard, which is the next tool that I want to talk a little bit about. And again, this is probably one of the tools that's been in Blackboard the longest, but one of my favorite tools because of how efficient it is in communicating with the students. Again, you find the announcement tool by going under Course Tools in the Course Management area and then clicking on Announcements, and then you'll see when you do that this Announcements page. One of the nice things about announcements is that you can communicate in a kind of a broad manner to the students, and by posting an announcement, you not only in the course itself, in your course, they will see this announcement, but when they're logging into Blackboard, they may not be intending necessarily to go into your course, but they will see with the rest of the system level announcements that they received your particular announcement there. And in this example, I actually have what's called a course link down here at the bottom of the announcement. And what this does is it is a place where it's a direct access point. A student can click and go right to whatever document or location in the course I might be mentioning. So in this example announcement, maybe welcoming the students to the course. I have some text saying, hey, check out the syllabus, and then here's a place where you can actually go ahead, and I've put a link directly, called a course link, directly to the syllabus. Isabel, is there a possibility to create voice announcements? That is a great question. At the moment, we don't have, there is a plugin that some institutions have licensed for Blackboard. Is called Limba Voice Tools. And what it basically lets you do is record audio and then have that show up directly inside of the announcement area, or basically any place in Blackboard where you can have a text announcement that can be displayed. And currently in Blackboard at the moment, when you go to create an announcement, you have some options. You can add different kinds of media. And there actually is an option to add some audio content to the course. In fact, I think what I'll quick do, let me hop over into Blackboard and just kind of share with you a sample announcement so I can point that out where that is. So I'm going to go in and do what's called application sharing. It'll take me just a moment here to go ahead and share my screen. Now you should see a Blackboard course, and if you can see this, again, if you can just give me a little check mark to indicate that you're able to see my screen. Just want to make sure everybody can see this. Okay, great. So Isabel, when you're composing an announcement, and so here I'm making the announcement, there is an option to add an audio file, and you'll see this. I know it's really hard to see it in the application sharing right now, but there is this audio, adding an audio file. If you click on it, it'll actually walk you through how you can, as long as you've already recorded that audio file, you could put that into your announcement right here. So you can technically add audio to the announcement. So that's a great question. So I'm going to leave. Let's go back, get out of the application sharing, and come back to kind of our slides. And yeah, and Jen, sorry you lost me for just a moment there with the audio, but glad to we're back in and moving forward. So just a few tips when it comes to the announcements tool. And it was a great question about adding voice to that. Again, like email, I'd recommend that you do also compose those announcements. Offline, keep a copy of those. I guess maybe I'm paranoid, but I like having an offline copy of those different kinds of communications. And when you teach online in particular, some of the most time-consuming aspects of teaching online is that communication that you do with students. And so if you can reuse some of those communications and customize them from the different iterations of teaching a course or reusing them amongst different courses, it really will save you a lot of time. And so that's a huge time saver I've found, is to keep those announcements. One of the things that's been really effective and efficient for me is to post important news announcements, reminders, those kinds of things, as announcements in Blackboard, and then also simultaneously email those to all the students. So there is an option in Blackboard when you post your announcement to kind of have it be sent immediately to the students. And I always check that option, and then Blackboard will email the announcement to the students as if it were coming from me, from my my NIU email. Yep, it is working again, Isabel. In fact, there's a tweak that ITS is going to make to it yet again, so that it's a little more clear what's happening. But when you check that box, it will go out to all of the students. I do, as I kind of mentioned in the previous slide, I do include course links when I'm notifying students of new course resources or announcements. So if I'm letting them know, hey, I want you to check out this reading or resource activity, I'll put a link, I'll add it as a course link at the bottom, so that right there at the bottom of the announcement they can click that link and go right to that particular activity. It just cuts down on the questions I receive from students. Where is it? And putting that link right there makes it very easy for them to access. The other thing that's nice about doing that is if the students are reading your announcement from outside of your course, and I mentioned this a little bit ago, how they can access your announcements from within this My Announcements module in their kind of Blackboard login page. If you put that course link in the announcement, they can jump from that link directly into your course, directly to that activity or information item. So again, it saves them some clicks, some time, and they're more likely to get that information that you're trying to share with them. A trick that I've recently come across, and this is in regards in the new Blackboard, is that when I'm reteaching a course and I do a course copy, those announcements copy over, and they copy with the dates in which they were made available. And since I find that I like to reuse, I often am reusing many of my announcements. When I reteach a course and I do a course copy, I'll go through the announcements, and sometimes it takes a little bit depending on how many announcements I had in the previous course, but I'll simply change the date of when it becomes available to, in essence, hide it until I need it. So I may pick a date that's maybe 2014, for example, 2 years from now, so that there's no chance that that announcement's going to show up in this coming semester. The students will never see it. But that way, I'm not deleting it from the course. I'm just changing the date that it becomes available. And then I can go back through, and I'll do that for all the announcements. And then when I want to maybe post one or reuse one, I have that text there already in my announcements within Blackboard, and then I simply have to change the date, make it available. And what I found is to make sure that the students receive it as an email, I actually don't just change the date, but I'll copy and paste the body of the announcement when making a new announcement and post it in there, and then make sure that I check that box at the bottom to send it to the students. Isabel, you mentioned having some difficulty with the links from the announcements. The links won't come through in the email. The links will only work, in Blackboard. And I guess depending on what you're linking to, if it's a folder versus a particular file, what the student sees might differ just a bit. But announcements are a great tool. One of the things I do with announcements is at the beginning of each week, when I'm teaching a course, I'll have a little introduction to the week, or maybe some things to think about. And what I like to do is put that out, post that as an announcement so that the students get it in an email. They also see it in Blackboard. And oh, okay, Isabel, about the links telling them how to log in. Yeah, they would need to then probably would just have to be an external link to the system itself. You mentioned giving them that link. So so anyway, those are just a few of my suggestions when it comes to announcements. And again, I just want to see, again, we'll maybe by using the check mark and X again, those of you participating live, if you're already using the announcement tool, if you could let me know yes or no if you're not. And then if you are using it, if you want to type in any comments or suggestions, other tips that you might have when it comes to using announcements, feel free to do that. I don't see any more typing in the text chat, so that must mean I'm covering, we're doing well so far. If you've got other questions or comments, again, always be sure to type those in the text chat area. But we'll move along then and talk a little bit about the discussion board. And I am curious to see, let me pause again and just ask, if you're already using the discussion board in Blackboard, if you could give me a check mark using the check mark button. Give me a yes for check mark or an X for no. So at least I know we've got at least one individual that hasn't used the, Bill's not using the discussion board. So just as a quick reminder that it is located, it's again one of the course tools that when you're setting up the discussion board in a course, you would go to Course Tools, and then you would click on Discussion Board, and then you would see this window here. And a discussion board is basically set up with different forums. So here's a forum, here's a separate forum. These are areas basically where the students can come in and have conversations. And you then create a forum as the faculty member or a TA. You can click the Create Forum, and there's a wizard that you're walked through where you can put in a title and a description for the forum, and then it becomes available. So there are some different kinds of forums that you can have. And so here you can see I have a help forum. This is really nice to provide a place. And if you've been in any of my discussion workshops, I talk about the value in having a help forum, a place where the students can ask questions. So you notice here it tells me that there are 13 total posts and 12 unread posts at the moment. I haven't been reading these posts in this help forum. But the idea with a help forum is that it's a place where the students can ask questions. So rather than receiving the same question through email over and over and having to respond to numerous emails, if a student has a general question about the course, I'm under the impression that is usually correct that someone else in this class may have that same question. And so I would prefer to answer that question in a public venue within the course so that I'm not just responding to one student, but all the students can benefit from that. And so one of the things I recommend, if you don't use the discussion board for anything else, is to have a help forum, a place where the students can ask questions about the course. And what's really helpful about that is students ask their question there once, and then I can answer it once, and then everyone benefits from that. There are a few tips when it comes to setting up that help forum that I'll share in just a moment for kind of optimizing how you set it up and the formatting and such. But like I said, you can have any number of forums, and you can reorder them. You notice there's this little up and down arrow. When you click and drag, you can move the forums and reorder them vertically within the discussion board space of your course. So as I mentioned, having that help forum is really helpful, and I would recommend that you set one of those up. And when you're doing that, one of the things I highly recommend, so that you don't have to be checking that every day or maybe several times a day, is to enable what's called subscription in the help forum. So that in the settings, there's an option when you're creating a forum to allow users to subscribe to the forum. And then underneath that, there's a sub-option to get the whole body of the post in the email. And this is a really good idea, so that when the students do indeed have a question and they post it to that help forum, what you then can do is subscribe yourself. And it's a one-time thing you do when you are creating the forum in Blackboard. You subscribe yourself to the forum, and then anytime someone posts to that forum, you get it as an email. So it basically is your reminder to log into the course and answer that question. And especially if you're not in the course on a daily basis and you want to provide that prompt feedback to your students, which I suspect we all do, that is a great tool and a great way to set that up. I also like to create a social forum, a place maybe for off-topic discussions. This probably isn't quite as crucial with the prevalence of social media nowadays. Many of these students, they are already communicating online or using mobile devices. They're texting or whatever in different venues. But if you are going to have discussion, graded discussions, to keep that kind of off-topic discussion from creeping in, create just a separate social forum where they can have those off-topic discussions. It's really important if you're going to be grading and requiring contributions to a discussion board that you specify the due dates. When do the students need to be participating? What are those dates? And one of the things I like to do is have due dates not only for an initial response to a question or a prompt that you might make, but also then have a follow-up date when they need to respond to perhaps 2 other students in the discussion. And if for example, each week you're going to have graded discussion, you may decide that, okay, if the new unit, the new week starts on Monday, maybe by Thursday or Friday their initial post has to be made to the discussion board so that they then have a few days to respond to one another. Maybe by Sunday then have their follow-up posts in. So you want to really try to structure and scaffold a discussion and not just an initial response to a question. That really isn't the discussion. The discussion really is the back and forth dialogue that can take place. I do recommend including the due dates in the discussion descriptions within the forum. So when you create the forum, you give it a title and then you put a description in, actually put those due dates right in the description. So when the students see those in the discussion board, they know they're reminded what those due dates are. I don't just turn all discussions on at once to try to keep the students focused. What I have found to be really helpful is to make the discussion forums available as needed. So as we're going through, it's week 2 of the class, and I have a week 2 discussion that I want them to participate in. I'll have week 2 available. I'll also have week 1. Last week's discussion is still there, so they can go in, they can continue to view that. But I don't just have all the forums available. I want to keep us focused, on the topic at hand for the week, and so that's something else I recommend. I've found from feedback from the students as well as from my own experiences that I like to reorder the discussion forums in reverse chronological order to reduce scrolling. That means having the latest, newest discussion forum at the top. And what I usually do is I'll have my help forum at the very top. Maybe underneath that, this social forum that's maybe for that off-topic type of conversation. And then the very next forum underneath it will be whatever our current topic, the current forum for that week is, and then maybe underneath that, the next oldest, and then so forth. That way, if you have 10 different forums by the end of the course, the students and you as well aren't always having to scroll to the bottom to see what's the latest and greatest. I try to have that always at the top. And I do that not only in my discussion forums, but anywhere in my course where I have content in a list, I always try to put the newest at the top. And I guess more out of selfish reasons for myself to cut down on scrolling, but students appreciate it as well. I don't recommend that you delete or remove past discussion forums. I think there's value in the students being able to go back and reflect on previous discussions, and you as well. And so I think it's a good idea to keep those there for the students. But again, what I do is by having the newest always at the top, at some point those old forums, they're far enough down in the list that they're not a distraction to the students. Going back to audio, and Isabel brought this up with announcements, but do look to supplement text communications with audio to add that additional dimension if possible. It's very easy nowadays to record a quick audio MP3 file. There's free software that you can use for doing so, and then you can post that file in an announcement or as a follow-up in a discussion, so that the students just aren't seeing a text response but could also hear from you. I use audio when I'm doing these, I mentioned previously, like a weekly introduction to what we're talking about, and I'll have not only the text, a manuscript of that, but I'll also record it in an audio format that the students can listen to. If they're accessing the course from their computer, they can play it on their computer, or using, for example, the new Blackboard mobile app, and they're accessing the course on a mobile device. When they click on that MP3, it'll actually play right on the device. Isabel brought up this comment. She said that she lost all of her podcasts when the new version was installed. And there's actually, when we upgraded, there's a known bug apparently with the podcasting building block, Isabel, that we've used at NIU for doing podcasts. It worked really slick, and it's one of my favorite tools within Blackboard. At the moment, Blackboard is aware of that issue, and apparently in a future service pack, the issue, they are going to, it's a Blackboard problem. It's actually not the building block. It's something that Blackboard itself is aware of, and they're working to resolve. So eventually we'll have that podcasting building block back, and it'll be working again. I don't know that we'll have it by this summer, but it might be by fall perhaps. I know it's definitely been identified. They know what they did to break it, and they're working to fix that. So yeah, look for ways to podcast. And there's actually, if you want to do podcasting, I'm working on a future article, newsletter article, talking about how you can roll your own podcast using some different free tools and incorporate that into Blackboard. So if you're really interested in podcasting and we don't yet have it built into Blackboard, follow up with me and I can share with you some tips of what has worked for me. All right, so with that, let me just pause again and see if there are any other discussion tips, anything else anyone wants to share. Feel free to type those in the text chat or raise your hand, and I'll pause and turn the microphone over to you. I do want to try to keep moving because I have quite a few additional tips I do want to talk about. So if it's okay, I'll just keep moving along here. I want to talk about blogs for a moment. And again, if you've used blogs in Blackboard, if you could click on the check mark and then give me a yes or no, it would be really helpful to let me know that. A blog, and you may have heard of blog, it's short for weblog. It's really an online journal or just a kind of an informal communication tool. And so this is what a blog looks like once it's been set up in Blackboard. This is an example of an activity where you could have a student profile blog where you could have the student kind of as an icebreaker. You could give them some instructions, and then they could each make a posting. And it looks different from a discussion board in the sense that all of the postings are listed in reverse chronological order on the left, and then on the right you can actually go in and you can see, you can pick on an individual that's posted and you can see their posts. It's also kept an index, so if this was an ongoing activity that was going to take place over a period of weeks or even months, I could see the progress and kind of sort by date of when the contributions were made. So we do have information on the Teaching with Blackboard site about blogs, quick guides to getting started creating blogs. In Blackboard, my recommendation is, and Isabel, your comment about it doesn't seem to be as interactive as the discussions. There is a distinction there where the blog is really geared for, and I have it's kind of perfect segue into the first point here, having a student making a contribution and then others maybe respond, but that's as deep as the conversation goes. It's not really geared for this back and forth threaded kind of deep conversation that we're used to having in a discussion board. And when you create a blog in Blackboard, you can either create an individual blog when grading students' posts or something that's called the class blog. There's not a big difference when you get to wanting to set up a blog. The individual blog is nice because when a student logs in, the student sees their individual posts by default, and then they can go see everyone else's as well. In what's called a class blog, students see all of the posts by default, and that's really the big distinction, is that what they see when they initially come in. When you set up the blogs, there's some real basic things like don't allow anonymous entries so that the student's name is always associated with what they write. And we recommend that in the discussion board as well, that you don't check that option. You can index their contributions either monthly or weekly, depending on the length of the course, as well as use a rubric. There's a great new tool in Blackboard called Interactive Rubrics. And I have an online workshop coming up this next month in February of 2012 talking about interactive rubrics and kind of highlighting them. So if you're interested in that, you can watch for that and register. We'd love to have you participate in that, where I'll kind of walk through what these rubrics are and how you can actually use them in grading within Blackboard. And I'm going to skip here next to wikis just to keep things moving here, because I know we are starting to run short of time. A wiki, like a blog, is very similar. And again, you'll find the wiki tool. It's one of the course tools, and then you'll see wikis is down towards the bottom. The big difference between a wiki and a blog, it looks very similar to a blog in the fact that you have content on the left, and then you have some menus and links and things on the right. The big distinction is that with a wiki, and this example here is a course glossary wiki, where maybe you're going to have different terms in the course and you wanted the students to kind of collaboratively build a glossary of terms. A blog is designed, what we just talked about, where each student makes their contribution, and it's unique to them, it's individualized to them, and then they may comment on one another's posts. The idea with a wiki is really that we're working together to create a single voice or a single document, a single project or deliverable where we're all contributing to that. So I know this is really hard to see in the screenshot, but on this initial page of this wiki, it says it's created by, and my name is listed there, and then last modified by someone else. So the idea here is that students can work together to build a space, if you will, a collaborative resource that they can all be proud of and they can add content to. And so wikis are great tools for collaborative asynchronous activities when you have a single collective, that single communication is being created. Just a few of the instructions, and these are all, you have these tips here, would be give some detailed instructions for how you want the students to use the wiki. And wikis are great tools because any user can create a page, any user can edit any page, and there's an ongoing history where you can go in and see kind of the evolution of a page over time, which is great. However, the more structure you can put in place, the better and the more effective your wiki activities are going to be. So I always like to have some instructions in the instructions area, but then also on the home page. So just jumping back to the previous slide for just a moment. By instructions, I mean you have up here at the top this instruction space. Then the students see that on basically every page. So you don't want that to be too lengthy, because if this is a whole page long, it makes for a lot of scrolling. So you do want to have some brief instructions, but then creating what's called the home page is the very first page that the students see when they access the course. And so it's really a good idea to put maybe some more detailed instructions on that home page. I also recommend putting together some sample or template pages for the students. So creating a sample page. Here you can see on the left, or on the right I should say, that under this home page, I've created a few sample pages just to kind of show them the structure of what I'd like to kind of see. And creating a sample page is really a good idea. I will say that structure averts chaos when it comes to, especially when it comes to using wikis. So creating placeholder pages is a good idea. If you want maybe every student to have their own unique space where they're going to make contributions and then add those to everyone else's, maybe in a collaborative area or different page, you may want to create those pages in advance and tell the students, okay, here's your page, edit your page, to keep some order as the students are using the tool. So that's wikis. I'm going to jump to journals now and just talk briefly about what the journal tool is. Very similar to a blog, and again you can find it within the course tools, and then the journals area is where you can go to create journals. Looks like a blog. You have an instructions area. It looks visually a little bit different in that there's this kind of paper format or template for the different postings that a student might make. Really the idea with a journal is that it's for reflection. And I can go in creating a journal assignment. I can see a given student's any number of journal contributions, posts to their journal. What's nice about it is it's private. It's just communication between the student and the instructor. And as the instructor, you have a couple of options where you can give those comments, and I'll show that in just a moment. Journals are great for reflective activities, so when you're having the students reflect on their learning, it's a great tool to use. And I would say decide how frequently you're going to grade those journal contributions, and then create a number of journals to match that. So maybe you're going to grade this journal once in the course. You want them to post every week, to post a reflection on what they're learning, and at the end of the course you're going to give them one grade. Then you just need one journal, basically one journal assignment, in Blackboard, and then each week they can make a new posting to that same assignment. You set it up once, and they post each week. You do have the option to give feedback when grading, as well as comments for the individual posts. And so I believe I've got a screenshot of this I can show you. So here you can see on this journal, and I know it's small, it's hard to read, but at the bottom here, under comments, I've posted a comment back to this post from a student. So this would be commenting on a particular posting. But then when I go to grade the journal and I click Edit Grade, there's an option to add in feedback with the score, and to do that all, and that's kind of in general for the overall journal itself, whereas I can provide very granular, specific comments to each of the contributions that a student might make to the journal. All right, so being mindful of the time and that it's very quickly slipping away here, let me just jump down very quickly and talk about collaboration tools. This is the real-time kinds of collaborations that you can have in Blackboard. We still have in Blackboard the chat tool, and it's located under collaboration. In course tools, collaboration, you can create an office hour, kind of just a text chat space where you can log into Blackboard. The students can log in and can participate in that. You also have the option to use, at the moment, Wimba Classroom. Eventually this Blackboard Collaborate tool will be available and eventually replace Wimba Classroom that you could use for a synchronous type of a meeting with your students. So there are some of these collaborative tools that are real-time for you to meet real-time with your students. I do like to offer, especially in an online course, options for the students to have like a Q&A session and to do that in real time. And I try to record those whenever possible, and then I make those available for those that can't participate live. One general tip that I'll just throw out as we're preparing to wrap up here is for any of these communication tools, you set them up in the the different course tools areas within that control panel space that only you have access to. But it's really important that you post links to the activities and the tools in the course. So for example, here I have a screenshot of a sample unit folder. Maybe you organize your course by units. Within that unit folder, if it's for week 2, go ahead and place for the students, create a link to, this is that blog activity that I showed you that I had set up as a sample. The next one is that sample wiki activity. If you're going to have the students complete those activities, put the links in the particular content folder wherever that content's going to reside. I found from the feedback I received from students and in working with many faculty, students appreciate having all of the activities, the information and resources in a single place for a single point in time in the class. So however you organize your course, if you do it by weeks or units or chapters of your textbook, however you do that, have a structure in place and then post the links to these different communication activities with the content. So it's all in one spot for the students. And I've just found that seems to be how the students prefer to have access to that, and it makes a lot of sense for me when I start to put the course together to organize things by kind of sequential and logical unit structures. So with that, are there any other questions that anyone has? Let me just pause just for a moment and see, are there other questions or comments or suggestions that you have regarding communicating with Blackboard? Certainly feel free to put those in the text chat, or you can raise your hand and I'll pause, turn the mic over to you. As we're doing that, I know we're quickly running out of time, but I do want to mention again the handout that's available for that kind of accompanies this session. at blackboardtips.wikispaces.com/communications, and this is an open wiki that anyone can contribute to. So if you have other ideas or suggestions, maybe you're watching this archive, an archive version of this, and you would like to contribute to and add some more tips for one of the Blackboard communication tools, I'd welcome you to log on, to join the wiki, and to add your tips to this wiki page that we have here. Also, as a reminder, we have our Teaching with Blackboard site where you can find a lot of great step-by-step help resources, quick guides. We've got quick guides, we have tutorials, we have a nice searchable user guide where you can go in and search by topic that Blackboard's put together that we link to, listing of our upcoming workshops, as well as really a lot of great resources kind of broken down by the different types of communications, the different things that you do as an instructor building your Blackboard course or communicating and collaborating. That's a great section specifically talking about communicating in Blackboard that you can take advantage of and find the resources there that we've put together for you. We will be having the archive of our session here today. It will be available online. You will be able to find it on our archives page, and the way you find that, if you go to our faculty development site, and if you just click on archives, in the red bar at the top, you'll come to this page that'll list all of our past and current program archives, and there you can click a session, and you can view the archive. You can also, in iTunes, you can subscribe in iTunes for free, and you can download a mobile video version of the archive, and you can access that on your mobile device then. So if you have a mobile device, an iPad, an iPhone, an iPod Touch, an Android, some of the other devices, if it has an iTunes app in it, you can actually search the iTunes store. If you just search in iTunes using the term NIU Faculty Development, you'll find our Program Archives podcast where you can download right onto your device. And I'll just let everybody know also we're on Facebook and Twitter, so if you have questions or you'd like to stay up to date on new workshops that are coming out, you can follow us on either of those social media platforms. We'd love to hear from you. So with that, I'm going to put up my contact information, so if you're viewing the archive, you can feel free to get back in touch with me. I'm going to stop the recording at this point,